Years back, some friends and I were just joking around one night about what would be the ultimate idea of a horror that could take place. And probably not surprisingly, with my mind, I actually won. The scenario I came up with was that what if people on their deathbeds, when they see their relatives or angels or other humans beckoning them to move towards the light, what if these are not the spirits of the departed loved ones and friends, but perhaps are demons harvesting their life energy and snuffing them out as food? Now, I know it's a very dark thing, but it's something that I've always wondered about. Is death as filled with lies as life? Is death as filled with deception as life? And that brings me to ghosts. Recently, a group of ghost hunters asked me to come and join them because some members in the ghost hunting group agreed with my assertion, which I probably made on one of my radio shows, that I don't actually believe that ghosts are the spirits of the departed. I believe there's something else. And this idea that this is a dead person or a human being who hasn't moved on and is trapped in this reality for whatever reason is something that's never really sit well with me. Our minds will encapsulate a mysterious experience in a way that we can rationalize it so we can comprehend it without too much confusion or fear. So, for instance, when people saw strange lights in the skies back in the Middle Ages, they were devils or demons or angels. When we see strange lights in the sky today, they're aliens from another world. We will always attach a cultural overskin upon all these kinds of experiences. And this is really where the idea of the dead coming back as ghosts to haunt the living comes from. I'm more inclined to believe that these are entities. They're not malevolent, though some might be, or they're not benevolent, again, but some might be. They're part of the overall pantheon of demons, fairies, pixies, jinn, whatever you want to call it. Now, one of the contentions is, well, they must be ghosts because they always haunt old buildings. Going right back to the Babylonians, who were the first group to really saturate their society and culture in the idea of demons and demonology, they were specific that that was the kind of places that these demons lived in. Old ruins. Simply because they shunned human contact. We're probably dealing with a jinn type entity here who also live in caves because for the same reason they shun human contact. In fact, a neighbour of mine who's Muslim, I just asked him, and a young guy too, casually out of the blue, do you believe in the jinn? And his eyes actually lit up and he had that kind of knowing smile, and he told me that there's a factory near here, an abandoned factory, where he's seen them. And there we go again, this abandoned place where these forms exist. We know the jinns are known as smokeless fire, and that suggests plasma, and that's probably what the UFOs and the lights in the sky are as well, plasma forms. This is something we really need to get up to scratch on to understand the mystery of these experiences. Another thing people also say is, well, what about all the ghosts that are seen at graveyards? Again, if you look at the Babylonian records, they mention things like graveyards and even dumps as places where they collect. Anywhere there's less human beings, these entities or these energy forms or these plasma consciousness forms tend to congregate. One of the reasons we tend to believe that they're ghosts is because it provides us comfort of the idea of life after death. Oh, it's the ghost of Uncle Frank. Oh, it's the ghost of some guy who died in a Civil War battle. Oh, it's the ghost of some headless lady or some woman who killed herself. She heard news that her lover had died in a war. This kind of thing. This belief that we transcend this mortal life. And this is a unique Christian thing, because you find that ghosts are not seen in the same way in cultures where reincarnation is accepted, such as the Hindu world, such as the Druids of the Middle East and Buddhists. And if you talk to these people, and when they mention ghosts, they're not really talking about the Western idea of a ghost. They're talking in terms of, again, an entity. They just give it the word ghost. They just call it a ghost. In fact, in the Buddhist world, they call demons ghosts, being the most famous one, the hungry ghost, which is the demon you chase away by telling jokes and satirical, absurd stories. The dead don't haunt the earth, from what I can tell. When we see ghosts of past times, there's lots of famous stories of a Civil War army in England seen on a battlefield. The famous stories of, I think it was in Chester or Colchester in England, of a Roman legion passing through a building. That doesn't mean they're ghosts. What we're looking at is a time slip, just like what I pointed out in my Liverpool film recently. The same thing. The time slip, the reality slip. And these two ideas of the entities that haunt remote places, coupled with this paranormal experience of the time slip or the reality slip, is where in Western society we have come to this idea that these are ghosts from the past who are haunting the present for some purpose, often connected to trauma. Now this brings up a very interesting other point. I absolutely do believe that places where horrific battles have taken place, horrors have taken place, like a house where a family had been slaughtered or something, that the death energy is embedded within the stone, not within wood but within stone. Because of the quartz nature of many rocks, there's an ability there to act as a kind of a tape recorder. And the sheer psychic intensity of the energy released during these battles or these horrific events is recorded in the stones, in the soil. If bricks could talk, this kind of idea. Where you won't have it happen is where the buildings have been removed. It's not the location as such, it's the materials it's made of. You go to Berlin, now Berlin was flattened during World War II. You do not get these sensations of ghosts. There should be millions. The trauma embedded into the fabric of the buildings. The buildings were all knocked down and carried away. Same thing probably at the World Trade Center. It's the materials that hold the memory. Started this short film with a kind of a dark and terrifying scenario. I'd like to end it with a positive one. In countries where reincarnation is accepted, there is a belief that you get what you want at the end of your life. If you want to reincarnate as yourself again and you put all your concentration into it, you will reincarnate as yourself or as something else. What's very interesting about cultures that actively deal in the idea of reincarnation, such as the Druids, is that the individuals generally come back as the same gender and come back in similar circumstances within the ethnic group. So they're easily found. They're actively coming back to be found in order to provide comfort to the family members. And there's some remarkable stories of children with incredibly detailed descriptions of how they died in things like the Lebanese Civil War that little children wouldn't know, details regarding weaponry and so on. And then years later, them coming back and describing who they are, who their family is, and their family encounter them, meet them, and come together with them. This is a more healthier idea. The idea that you can plan what you want to do when you come back. The Abrahamic religions tell us that we are doomed to a heaven or a hell, although in Judaism there is a phenomenon known as the Gilgud, where you can actually relive your life again if you feel you've made mistakes or done things in this life that you must atone for, to give you a second chance to do it. And finally, on a somber note, if you're an atheist and you're coming to the end of your life believing there's nothing beyond this, you will dissipate your soul by literally switching your program off. You will terminate your program. So not enough consideration is given to what happens at the end of life and afterlife. And a lot of these things, like belief in ghosts being departed spirits of the dead haunting the earth, are cultural idiosyncrasies brought about by things such as Christianity and the like. Now, I'm not saying people who see their dead relatives soon after they die, or their loved ones, are not seeing them. They may be seeing a projection created by their minds in order to help them through the healing process. This doesn't mean it's a cold, hard clinical process. It has a deeply spiritual function. In fact, it's the cognitive mechanism of the human mind reminding you that there is something beyond this, and to keep living for that reason. And this is probably the main reason why we should reconsider our whole approach to things such as ghosts and what they may be.